Donkeys are being moved across continents like cargo, not creatures. What's powering this global trade isn't just demand. It's tech, tradition, and a surprising market most people have never heard of. What's really happening behind the scenes might just flip what you think you know. They don't teach this in school, but somewhere out on the dry edge of a farm in northern Kenya, or maybe in the steamy outskirts of a Latian hillside, something happens that most people never think about. It's early, before sunrise. The sky's still holding onto a deep navy blue, and you can just make out the sound of diesel engines humming on the horizon. In the center of it all stands a donkey, tied loosely to a fence made of mismatched timber. Its coat is dusty, its eyes half closed, but it's standing still. There's a rhythm to all of this, one that stretches across continents. That donkey is about to be moved, not down the road or over to another field. We're talking hundreds, sometimes thousands of miles, from isolated agricultural villages to chaotic ports, from straw-covered pens to the inside of a container truck packed with others like it. It's part of a larger system, one where animals raised for work are pulled into an export process fueled by global demand. Some will be sent to countries like China, where donkey hides are processed into ejiao, a popular traditional medicine. Others might be transported to places where agricultural work demands more animal labor than machines can cover. Now, this isn't a slapdash operation. It starts with a health check, not out of kindness, but out of necessity. If even one animal shows signs of infection or weakness, it can put the entire shipment at risk. Local vets and agricultural officers go pen by pen, checking hooves, gums, hydration, body weight. Think of it like a pre-flight inspection, except this is done in dirt lots with no hanger in sight. Some regions have started using handheld diagnostic tools and mobile vet kits, even syncing the data to cloud-based software developed by upstart agroforestry tech firms. Once cleared, loading begins. And here's where things get gritty. It's not always a clean process. Loading usually happens at night, partly to avoid scorching heat, partly to avoid attention. The donkeys are led into makeshift crates, rough wooden frames often lined with straw or plastic tarps. Why? So they don't rub themselves raw during the trip. Too much movement and they risk injury. Not enough space and they'll overheat or panic. There's a delicate balance that handlers have learned to master over time, more out of necessity than training. Trucks rumble in, one after another. These aren't your standard freight carriers. They're often repurposed livestock haulers, adapted with cooling fans and modified partitions. The crates are arranged tightly, often stacked in pairs, with small gaps for airflow. Some vehicles even come equipped with temperature monitors and GPS trackers, a direct result of technology creeping into this slice of agriculture. Farmers and middlemen alike use mobile apps to log routes, monitor heat levels, and even get alerts if an animal's vitals spike too high. Feeding and hydration are another layer. For short hauls, say 8 to 12 hours, donkeys are sometimes moved without food. But if the trip stretches across borders or runs over multiple days, handlers use compact feeding systems. That usually means compressed hay or high-fiber feed blocks designed for transport. Watering is handled through old plastic jugs or custom-built troughs, many of which are designed by local welders. There's even talk of integrating solar-powered hydration units into larger hauls, a mashup of agriculture, sustainability, and tech in real time. Now let's talk permits. These trips aren't as simple as throwing a few animals into a truck and hitting the road. Paperwork is relentless. Travel permits need to be signed off by regional agricultural boards, then stamped by border officials. Every donkey gets tagged, sometimes with a metal clip, sometimes with a QR-coded sticker. There are inspection logs, vaccination histories, export manifests. In some areas, drivers use mobile printers, literally plugging into cigarette lighters to print government forms on the fly. It's a chaotic, low-budget fusion of tradition and bureaucracy. Of course, behind all this red tape are the people making it happen. Brokers coordinate shipments across borders, drivers manage fuel stops and roadblocks, and handlers keep the animals calm during long stints on the road. Some of these folks have been in the trade for years. They know how to negotiate checkpoints, avoid corrupt officials, and talk their way through last-minute delays. Many of them rely on this work to support families, fund farms, or pay off old debts. In a lot of regions, exporting livestock, and especially donkeys, is one of the few profitable routes left in agriculture. And then there's the port. That's where the energy shifts from slow to frantic. Donkeys are offloaded into holding pens, their crates pulled apart with crowbars, and their paperwork checked for a second or third time. Some ports have vet stations, others rely on private contractors to give the final green light before the animals are loaded onto ships. The facilities vary wildly. Some are clean and regulated with shaded waiting areas and fresh water tanks. Others are little more than fenced-off lots with sand, noise, and a whole lot of confusion. At this stage, tech plays a subtle but powerful role. Tracking software, built by small logistics companies focused on agricultural exports, allows clients and handlers to follow every movement. It's not perfect, but it's way ahead of where things were 5 years ago. Apps can now monitor shipping container temps in real time, record feeding intervals, and even trigger alerts if animals haven't moved in too long. There's talk of using blockchain for transparency, though that idea is still mostly on paper. Through it all, the donkey, an animal once used for plowing, hauling, and farm work, becomes part of a global trade system. It's strange when you think about it. Here's an animal that's long been part of traditional agroforestry, walking fields, carrying goods, now caught in a world of digital logistics, cross-border permits, and real-time health tracking. In some ways, it's progress. In others, it's exploitation. But even with all the logistics and upgrades, there are still massive cracks in the system. And as more eyes turn toward this trade, those cracks are starting to show, especially when it comes to how far these animals are moved and why. Let's be honest, the whole operation might look polished from a distance, but once you zoom in, the cracks are impossible to ignore. This isn't just about moving animals. It's tangled in a web of ethics, economics, and everything in between. You can't talk about the donkey trade without facing the uncomfortable questions. And trust me, they come fast. First, there's the elephant in the room, or in this case, the donkey. What actually happens to these animals after they're shipped? In many cases, they're processed for ejiao, a product made from donkey hide gelatin. It's used in traditional Chinese medicine, often claimed to boost circulation or improve skin health. But here's the kicker. Demand has skyrocketed in recent years, and the supply chain just can't keep up, at least not without pushing limits. That means more donkeys pulled from smallholder farms where they're still relied on for daily work, more trucks overloaded, more animals handled like raw cargo instead of living beings. Animal welfare groups haven't stayed quiet. They've sounded alarms about everything from overcrowded crates to dehydration, stress, and even death during transport. And it's not exaggeration. There have been well-documented cases of donkeys arriving at ports barely alive or already dead. For an animal that was once treated like part of the family in many agricultural communities, that shift is jarring. There's this haunting contrast between how they're raised and how they're handled once money enters the picture. Geography adds another layer of trouble. Take parts of East Africa or Central Asia. Beautiful landscapes, sure, but not exactly easy terrain for moving livestock. Roads are either underdeveloped or, in some regions, completely missing. A single heavy rain can wash out access routes for days. Drivers have to make impossible calls, push forward and risk animal injuries, or wait it out and lose money. These are places where even delivering fresh produce is hard, let alone managing long-haul livestock transport. And don't forget about the ports themselves. Not all of them are equipped to handle live animals at scale. In some cities, holding zones are makeshift setups built from shipping containers, scrap fencing, and canvas tarps. There's no air conditioning, no proper drainage, just a few water troughs and a lot of noise. Tech isn't much help here. Even the fanciest tracking software can't fix infrastructure problems. You could be running the latest agriculture logistics platform on your phone, but if the road's washed out or the holding pen is full, you're stuck. But it's not just about terrain. It's about distance, too. Some donkeys are moved across 3 or 4 countries before they reach their destination. Think about that. You've got animals being trucked hundreds of miles across borders, each with its own rules, checkpoints, delays. It's like trying to run a relay race where each runner speaks a different language and demands a bribe. Even with international permits and coordinated routes, delays are common, and every extra hour adds more stress to the animals. Then there's the economic fallout, and it's not what you'd expect. Sure, exporting donkeys can bring in fast cash for traders, middlemen, and some farmers, but in many places these animals are still essential, not optional. They haul water, they carry firewood, they pull plows, they keep small farms running, especially in places where tech and mechanized agriculture still haven't caught on. When local populations start selling off their donkeys for quick profit, entire communities can suffer. It's like selling your car in a rural town where there's no public transport. Short-term gain, long-term loss. This creates tension. not just between buyers and sellers, but within communities. Some see the trade as an opportunity to make money, others see it as a threat to traditional life. It's a divide that's growing, especially as international demand stays hot. You'll hear stories of villages where nearly all the donkeys have disappeared within a single year. Prices soar, theft rises, and suddenly, people are walking miles just to carry goods by hand again. There are also cultural differences in how donkeys are viewed. In many parts of the world, especially in agroforestry communities, these animals are more than workers. They're companions, vital parts of the household. But once they enter the trade system, that connection is often broken. They become inventory, tagged, sorted, shipped. And that shift, from essential partner to commodity, raises questions no tech solution can really answer. Of course, the global agriculture market doesn't slow down to think about ethics. It keeps spinning, and where there's demand, supply will try to meet it, with or without proper systems in place. That's where the biggest risks live, in the gaps between what's needed and what's actually possible. In the thin space between a donkey's value to its local owner and its price on the international market. Then there's enforcement, or more often, the lack of it. Sure, many countries have rules on paper, but enforcement is uneven. In some regions, border agents are underpaid and overworked. A few extra bills can make a stack of permits disappear, and with growing international pressure to meet demand, there's always someone willing to cut corners. Even the introduction of tech tools, like mobile customs logs or biometric ID tags, hasn't fixed this. They're helpful, but only if the people using them are willing to follow the rules. And all this comes at a time when global conversations about ethics in agriculture are heating up. Consumers want transparency, they want sustainability, and they want humane treatment of animals, even ones they never see. That puts pressure on everyone in the chain: the farmers, the brokers, the shippers, even the countries themselves. Some have responded with bans or restrictions, others have tightened regulations, but enforcement remains spotty, and the gray areas are still vast. There's no easy fix here. You've got too many moving parts. Culture, geography, tech, money, tradition. It's messy. But that hasn't stopped a new wave of thinkers, engineers, and activists from trying to change the game. Let's talk about what's changing. Because even in the middle of a chaotic trade, people are finding ways to do better. And no, this isn't some sweeping revolution with fireworks and speeches. It's quieter than that. It's a series of small, practical moves that, together, are starting to shape the system into something a little less harsh, a little more human. Start with the basics. The crates. For years, they were cobbled together with whatever wood was lying around. Sharp edges, poor ventilation, zero comfort. But now, in regions where tech and agriculture are starting to overlap, crate designs are getting smarter. Lighter materials, built-in water holders, more airflow. Some even include sensors that send temperature data straight to a driver's phone. It's still rough in many places, but this shift matters. It's real innovation, and not just for show. Then there's health monitoring. Long transports used to mean total guesswork. No one knew what condition the donkeys were in once the truck doors closed, but that's changing. With wearable trackers, small solar-powered devices, handlers can now monitor vitals like heart rate and hydration, all from a basic app. The tech isn't flashy, but it's helping people make better decisions in real time. When the heat spikes or an animal hasn't moved, the system flags it. And in this business, small warnings can prevent big problems. Regulations are tightening too, but not always from the top down. Some of the most meaningful pressure has come from activists and local communities. In countries like Niger and Burkina Faso, bans were put in place not just out of principle, but out of necessity. The local economies were being hollowed out. Donkeys weren't just livestock, they were central to farming, water collection, daily transport. Exporting them meant losing too much. That pushback changed policy fast, but enforcement is only part of the puzzle. Tools like mobile vet clinics are popping up in places that used to have zero access to animal care. These aren't luxury units. They're pickup trucks loaded with just enough equipment to vaccinate, check vitals, or treat infections on site. In areas without clinics, they're the only line of defense, a practical mix of agriculture and field-ready tech. And in agroforestry zones where animals and land are deeply connected, they're making a clear impact. Even blockchain is getting a seat at the table. Exporters are experimenting with secure digital logs to track the entire movement of a donkey, health records, ownership, transit points. That kind of visibility didn't exist before, and it's starting to close the gaps that shady players have long used to their advantage. It's a shift from paper to proof, and for a trade that's long operated in the shadows, that's a big deal. The real beauty of these efforts isn't in how fancy they look, it's in how quietly effective they are. Not perfect, not widespread, but undeniably growing. And as the pressure builds from global markets, local governments, and communities themselves, the cracks are starting to show in the old system. What's next might not be clear yet, but the space for something better is opening. So now you've seen what most people never do: the system, the stakes, and the silence behind a global trade that rarely makes headlines. What do you think should change? Should these animals be protected, or is regulation enough? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We read everyone. And if you're curious about the hidden forces shaping agriculture and tech around the world, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what's coming next.